Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive into Filipino nationalism.
Sounds fascinating.
We're going to be exploring this incredible book
Okay.
called Memories, Visions, and Scholarship, published by the University of the Philippines.
All right.
And it's packed with essays and research papers
Wow.
that really dig deep into, the heart of what it means to be Filipino.
I like it.
So we're going to try to extract all the juice we can from this book
Sounds good.
to understand how Filipino nationalism has evolved over time, what challenges it has faced, and why it's still relevant, even in today's world.
Definitely.
I think it's going to be really exciting.
I think so too.
So to kick things off, I want to start with Ana Fred Corpus's essay.
Okay.
It's called Memories, Visions, and Scholarship.
All right.
And right from the get-go, he hit me with this really interesting fact.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that Spanish records from way back 1588 all the way to 1896,
Wow.
they never actually used the term Filipino?
Really?
They just labeled everyone as Indios. Huh. That's interesting.
It really makes you think about, the power of language and how colonial powers often try to erase or diminish the identities of the people they rule.
It's a way of controlling them almost.
Exactly. And Corpus, he goes on to argue that around the time Rizal published A La Juventud Filipina in 1879,
Okay.
a new generation was born,
A new generation.
and they had this different consciousness.
Interesting.
They saw the Philippines as their true motherland.
So they had a sense of national identity.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to think about figures like Aguinaldo and Bonifacio, who were part of this generation,
Yeah.
these young revolutionaries who led the charge for independence.
Right.
Corpus highlights how Aguinaldo in particular was a brilliant strategist.
In what way?
Well, he didn't just dream of freedom, he had a plan. He aimed to reclaim the Philippines strategically, piece by piece.
Wow.
And he even set up a de facto government
Really?
before formal independence was declared. So he was already building the nation.
It's like he was laying the groundwork for a free Philippines.
That's incredible.
And their vision and courage. It really changed the course of history,
For sure.
leading to the Proclamation of Independence in 1898.
A pivotal moment.
Definitely. But the story doesn't end there, right?
Not at all.
Jose Villabueva picks up the narrative in his essay,
Okay.
and he describes the Philippines as being in this state of unfinished revolution.
Unfinished revolution.
Right.
What does that even mean?
Well, it's this idea that gaining independence was just the beginning. It was a step in a much larger journey
Towards what?
towards building what Bueva calls the good society.
Good society? I like the sound of that.
It's this idea of constantly striving for a better Philippines.
So what are the ingredients of this good society?
Well, he really dives deep into the 1987 Constitution,
Okay.
pointing out provisions that promote things like
Like what?
citizen participation, labor rights, and putting limits on political dynasties.
Right. Interesting.
It's all about creating a more just and equitable society.
Right.
I was particularly struck by how much he emphasizes citizen participation.
Yeah.
It's not just about having a constitution on paper.
It's about people actually being involved.
Exactly. It's about people actively shaping their nation.
So it's a shared responsibility.
And I think that's a message that resonates, beyond the Philippines.
For sure.
But building a nation also means dealing with, different ideologies, different groups vying for power.
It can get messy.
And that's where Francisco Nemenzo's essay on Filipino communism comes in.
Okay, so we're shifting gears a bit.
Yeah, he takes us on this journey through the history of the movement,
From what to what?
from the Hucks all the way to the CPP.
Wow, that's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from the internal conflicts.
What kind of conflicts?
Well, there were splits, factions, debates over strategy and ideology.
So even within a movement, there can be disagreements.
Exactly. It shows that even those fighting for a common cause can have very different ideas about how to get there.
That makes sense.
And his take on globalization really caught my eye.
Oh, tell me about that.
He argues that Marx's analysis of capitalism is actually even more relevant today.
Really? How so?
Well, he suggests that globalization, with its focus on,
What?
free markets and global capital.
Okay.
It might actually be making the problems Marx talked about even worse.
Like what kind of problems?
Things like the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few,
Right.
the exploitation of workers, and this relentless pursuit of profit above all else.
That's a thought-provoking perspective.
It really challenges the way we think about progress.
For sure.
So we've got this backdrop of revolution, the quest for a good society, and this critique of capitalism.
Okay, so where does Riesel fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and that's where Cesar Adib Majul's essay comes in.
All right, let's hear it.
He explores Riesel's concept of national sentiment.
National sentiment.
Yeah, and he argues that Riesel saw this lack of unity and self-belief as major obstacles to progress in the Philippines.
So, like, Filipinos needed to believe in themselves and in their nation.
Exactly. And Majul really digs into what Riesel meant by national sentiment.
I'm curious, what do you mean?
Well, it seems to be this shared sense of identity, purpose, and love for one's country.
So a feeling of belonging and shared destiny.
Yeah, and you see these themes playing out in his novels.
Oh, absolutely.
Characters like the Peleas,
right?
Capitan Tiago Donna Victorina.
I remember them.
They embody all the tensions and contradictions of Filipino society at the time.
And those characters still resonate today.
That's the amazing thing about Riesel's work. It's like he captured something timeless about the human condition.
Definitely.
But Filipino nationalism isn't just about politics and revolution, right?
Well, of course not.
It's also expressed through culture, through art, through tradition.
Sure.
And the essays by Ramon P. Santos and Samuel K. Tan, they really highlight this.
How so?
Well, Santos focuses on music.
Okay.
And Tan explores the role of Islam in the Philippines.
Interesting.
Santos's essay blew my mind. I had no idea that the concept of musical intervals in Filipino music has these deep connections to ancient Chinese and Southeast Asian traditions.
Really?
Yeah, he explains how the mathematical basis for these intervals is strikingly similar across these different cultures.
So music can transcend borders.
Exactly. It's like this hidden language that connects us.
I love that.
And he gives these really vivid examples.
Like what?
He talks about bamboo polychordal zithers.
Wow.
Flutes. It's like you can almost hear the music.
I know, right?
And then we shift to Tan's essay on the evolution of Islam in the Philippines.
All right, tell me about that one.
It's fascinating how he shows the interplay between indigenous traditions and the process of Islamization.
So it's not a simple story.
Not at all. He uses sources like Tarsila, which are genealogies, and Luaran, which are legal codes, to show how complex and rich Filipino Muslim history really is.
It sounds like a tapestry of influences.
Exactly. And speaking of layers, we can't forget about literature.
Oh, of course, literature is so powerful.
And the final 3 essays by NVM Gonzalez, Gemino H. Abad, and Damiana L. Eugenio, they really drive this point home.
In what way?
Well, Gonzalez, he shares his personal journey as a writer.
Interesting.
He started out writing for a magazine about movie stars.
Really?
Can you believe it?
That's a far cry from literature.
I know, right? But then he rediscovered his boyhood home of Mindoro. And it was like this spark ignited his passion for writing.
So place can be a source of inspiration.
Definitely. And then you have Abad, who focuses on language.
In what way?
He looks at how Filipino poets writing in English had to grapple with the legacy of colonialism.
That must have been a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They were trying to find their own voices within a language that was imposed upon them.
It's like carving out your own space.
Exactly. And finally, we have Eugenio, who opens up this treasure trove of Filipino folk literature.
Folk literature. I love that stuff.
She introduces us to myths, legends, epics, riddles.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So we're talking about stories passed down through generations.
Exactly. And they offer these incredible insights into the Filipino worldview, their values, their beliefs.
It's like a window into the soul of a culture.
I know. It's incredible, right?
This is fascinating stuff.
So we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
From the birth of Filipino nationalism to its expressions through politics, revolution, and culture.
It's a complex and multifaceted topic.
It really is. And it's clear that Filipino nationalism has deep roots.
Definitely.
And it continues to evolve.
For sure.
So I'm really excited to keep digging deeper.
Me too. This is going to be good. It really strikes me how Filipino nationalism, it's not just some abstract thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a driving force
Absolutely.
shaping the Philippines even today.
And Abueva's idea of the unfinished revolution.
Right.
I think that sums it up perfectly.
It makes you realize that independence was just the start.
Yeah, it's like a journey that's still unfolding.
Exactly. And he's clear that it's not just about, politics.
Right.
It's about creating this good society.
That's a really powerful concept, this good society.
It is.
What exactly does Abueva see as the essential elements of that?
Well, he keeps going back to the 1987 Constitution. He points out provisions that promote citizen participation.
Okay.
Labor rights limits on political dynasties.
So those are like the building blocks.
Yeah, you could say that.
Creating a society that's just and fair for everyone.
That's the goal.
And this emphasis on citizen participation.
Yes.
It's not just voting, it's about being actively engaged.
He's saying democracy is a process.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time thing.
It's like a muscle, you have to keep using it.
I like that analogy.
And that's a message that's relevant everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Not just in the Philippines.
Especially now.
Yeah, when democratic institutions are facing so many challenges.
Absolutely.
Abueva gives us a lot to think about.
He does.
No matter where we live.
But building a nation, it's not always smooth sailing.
No, it's not.
You've got different groups with different ideas.
And sometimes those ideas clash.
And that's where Nemenzo's essay on Filipino communism comes in.
He really takes us inside the movement.
He does.
Shows us the history, the internal struggle.
The different factions.
Yeah.
The debates over strategy.
It's like you're right there in the thick of it.
You see how even people fighting for a shared goal can have very different visions.
And Nemenzo doesn't shy away from the violence either.
No, he doesn't.
It makes you think about the cost of revolution.
It's a sobering reminder.
Yeah, that even well-intentioned movements
Right.
can have unintended consequences.
It raises tough questions about the means and the ends.
Yeah, how do you achieve justice without resorting to violence?
It's a dilemma that's been around forever.
So from these ideological battles, let's turn to something a little different.
Okay.
The cultural side of Filipino nationalism.
Ah, yes.
Music, religion.
They've played such important roles.
Santos and Tan's essays really brought that to life.
They did.
Santos's essay on music was mind-blowing.
Oh, tell me about it.
The connections he made between Filipino music and ancient Chinese and Southeast Asian traditions.
It's fascinating, right?
It shows how interconnected cultures really are.
He explained those musical intervals.
Yeah.
How the math behind them is so similar.
I never would have guessed that.
It's like a secret language.
It is.
Connecting people across time and space.
I love that.
And Tan's essay on Islam in the Philippines,
Yes.
he showed how Islam didn't just replace existing traditions.
Right.
It blended with them, evolved alongside them,
It's like a cultural fusion.
creating something unique to the Philippines.
Exactly. So we've got these powerful cultural forces at play.
And we can't forget about literature.
Oh, yes. The power of storytelling.
Gonzalez, Abad, Eugenio.
They each offer a different perspective.
They do.
Gonzalez's personal journey as a writer.
Finding inspiration in his childhood home.
Yeah, his connection to Mindoro.
It shows that our personal experiences can shape our creative voices.
And Abad exploring Filipino poets writing in English.
That struggle to find their own voices.
Within a language that wasn't their own.
Powerful theme.
And Eugenio opening up this world of folk literature.
Myths, legends, epics.
These stories passed down through generations.
It's like tapping into the collective memory of a people.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
The history, the politics, the culture of Filipino nationalism.
It's been a whirlwind.
It has.
But I think we've laid a solid foundation.
Definitely.
And now I'm ready to explore what all of this means for the Philippines today.
Ah, yes, the contemporary relevance of Filipino nationalism.
Exactly. You know, as we wrap up this deep dive, I can't stop thinking about
What's that?
this idea of balancing personal ambition
Okay.
with, like, the needs of the community.
Right, like individual versus collective.
Exactly. And it seems to come up again and again in these essays.
It's a classic tension, isn't it?
It is, and you see it so clearly in Rizal's novels.
Oh, yeah, how so?
Well, you have characters like the Palazies.
Those guys,
Yeah, they're all about self-interest, right?
looking out for number one.
But then you have others who are trying to find that balance.
Between their own goals and the good of society.
Exactly, and that's where Rizal's concept of national sentiment comes in.
He seemed to believe that was key.
It was like the foundation for real progress.
This idea that we're all connected.
Yeah, that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of the community.
And that ties in nicely with Abueva's emphasis on citizen participation.
It does, right?
The 1987 Constitution, it's almost like a roadmap. to empowering people to shape their nation.
And Nemenzo's analysis of the communist movement.
What about it?
Well, he argues that at its heart, it was driven by this desire for social justice.
People wanting a fairer system.
Exactly. But as we talked about,
yeah,
that pursuit often led to violence and division.
Which raises those tough questions.
How do you create change without resorting to those extremes?
It's a challenge that so many movements have faced.
And there's no easy answer, is there?
No, but I think these essays offer some guidance.
How so?
Well, they remind us that nation building, it's not just about grand ideas.
Right.
It's about the choices we make every day.
The small actions that add up.
Exactly. It's about participating in our communities.
Treating each other with respect.
Building a better future one step at a time.
And those cultural expressions we explored.
Music, religion, literature.
They all play a role too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Shape our values, our beliefs.
They connect us to the past.
And they offer a vision for the future.
So as we wrap up...
What's your main takeaway? I guess it's that Filipino nationalism. It's not a static thing.
It's constantly evolving.
It's shaped by history.
By culture.
By the actions of individuals.
And it continues to shape the Philippines today.
So to our listeners out there...
we leave you with this question.
What does Filipino nationalism mean to you?
In the 21st century.
What are its opportunities?
Its responsibilities.
Don't think about it. Explore it.
And keep diving deeper.
Thanks for joining us.